So it takes someone 5 minutes to Google Jake Tapper, Donald Trump, to see that Jake Tapper has consistently,
we're going to stop this interview if you're going to keep it.
I will say it's very easy to speak truth from this podium when you have a president who is implementing policies.
Ma'am, I'm going to stop this interview if you continue to attack my colleagues.
It's correcting the lies and the wrongs of the past 4 years, many of the lies that have been told to your faces in this very briefing room.
I would like to talk about Joe Biden and Donald Trump, who you work for.
Yes.
If you are here to speak on his behalf, I am willing to have this conversation.
I am stating facts that your colleagues have stated in the past.
Okay,
now,
I'm sorry, guys. We're going to come back out to the panel.
Have you ever witnessed a single interview destroy a TV icon's career in real time? That's exactly what happened when Karoline Leavitt, a rising conservative commentator, came face-to-face with a veteran host known for tearing guests to shreds. The debate started out tense but ordinary, until one slip of the tongue triggered a chain reaction nobody saw coming. Sponsors fled, social media erupted, and an entire network scrambled for damage control. But was this the triumph of accountability, or a chilling example of cancel culture at work? Let's find out. Karoline Leavitt wasn't a household name yet. At just 20-something, she'd already proven herself as a passionate conservative commentator unafraid of ruffling feathers. Her appearances on political talk shows had garnered praise from supporters and heated criticism from opponents, all while boosting her profile. Tough questions didn't scare her. In fact, she seemed to welcome them. The same could be said about the program she was about to appear on, The Morning Current. Famous for its intense roundtable discussions and televised verbal spars, it thrived on drama. At the center of it all was Paul Danning. He wasn't just the host. He was the show's backbone, a seasoned journalist with a history of cornering guests and exposing contradictions. Over the years, Paul had built a reputation for leaving no stone unturned, no statement unchallenged. This environment, with two strong personalities, was destined to crack. Nobody knew just how explosive it would get. Before Karoline took her seat in the studio, she'd done her homework. Recent surveys showed an increasing distrust in mainstream media, and she believed her presence was partly to address that skepticism. She expected Paul to push back hard on her claims of bias. He'd done so countless times with other conservatives. But there were rumblings that not everything was calm behind the scenes. Unnamed sources hinted at sponsor unease over plummeting ratings. Others suggested Paul was under pressure to deliver edgier interviews. Maybe these quiet warnings set the stage for what happened next. Or maybe it was just a clash of personalities. Either way, the tension was already simmering as they both came on air. From the moment Karoline and Paul began talking, viewers sensed an undercurrent of hostility. With every pointed statistic Karoline mentioned, studies about selective coverage, omitted details, Paul pushed back twice as hard, using his years of experience to question her sources and question her motives. It was gripping television, but a ticking time bomb all the same. What happened next wasn't just a heated debate. It was a loss of control that turned one phrase into an entire meltdown. Without warning, Paul leaned forward, cutting Karoline off. He used a phrase that would define the entire confrontation. Your people. At first, no one was sure what he meant. Did it reference her political affiliation, her personal background, or something else? Karoline held firm, her eyes locked on Paul, and she calmly challenged him. What exactly did he mean by your people? The tension strangled the studio. Producers froze. Camera operators exchanged uneasy looks. A moment that was supposed to be standard morning debate had become something else, a personal, razor-sharp confrontation. Paul tried to correct himself, blaming conservatives and bad faith outrage, but the slip had already landed. Social media was quick to slice that soundbite free of its context. Within seconds of the broadcast, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook lit up with those two explosive words. And the wave of online fury was only getting started. Moments after the broadcast wrapped, the first 15-second clip hit the internet. It showed only Paul's remark. Maybe if conservatives spent less time playing the victim and more time actually contributing something to society. Cut right before Karoline responded. This single line spread across platforms like wildfire, generating outrage and applause in equal measure. Commentators chimed in. Is this the ultimate proof of media bias? Others argued that Paul was merely fighting back against unsubstantiated claims. Political heavyweights tweeted, calling for Paul's dismissal and accusing the network of doubling down on disrespect. The phrase, your people, took on a life of its own, with some users insisting it revealed a deeper prejudice. Meanwhile, rumors bubbled up. Some suggested that for months, Paul had been clashing with senior producers. Others claimed the network had nearly fired him before over a separate on-air controversy. Suddenly, There was talk that this blow-up was just the excuse those in power needed to oust him for good. But official statements were nowhere to be found. At least, not yet. Inside the headquarters of NBS News, the parent network of the Morning Current, executives scrambled. The outcry was too loud to ignore, and sponsors were already backing away. First, a few major brands announced they were suspending partnerships, pending further review. That alone was bad. But by the end of the day, more had joined in, openly denouncing Paul's on-air conduct and threatening to pull their advertisements indefinitely. This wasn't just a public relations headache. It was a full-scale financial crisis. Tensions flared in emergency meetings. Some insisted that Paul needed to issue a heartfelt apology to calm the waters. Others believed the damage was done and that an apology would be interpreted as an admission of guilt. The question no one wanted to answer: should Paul Danning remain the face of the Morning Current? Karoline, surprisingly, stayed fairly quiet through it all. She retweeted the viral clip with a single emoji, a thinking face. It was subtle, yet unmistakably pointed. And as the network struggled to find solid footing, watchers grew increasingly curious to see where Karoline would take this momentum. But that wasn't the end of the story, the public soon realized. It was only the beginning. By the second day of unrelenting backlash, NBS issued a statement. Paul Danning was placed on indefinite suspension while they reviewed the episode. But the uproar didn't subside. If anything, it grew louder. Critics demanded a more decisive response, while supporters decried the network for caving to mob justice. Pressure mounted from all sides. After another day of behind-the-scenes chaos, the network made a final announcement. Paul Danning was officially terminated. The statement was brief, corporate, and direct. No mention of apology or forgiveness, just a bland thank you for his years of service. In a single stroke, the figurehead of the Morning Current was gone. Many viewers applauded the move, calling it overdue accountability. Others condemned it as cancel culture at its worst, claiming Paul's only crime was speaking too bluntly. In public, Karoline offered a carefully measured comment: people in positions of influence must be accountable for their words. That single line was enough to catapult the story further, prompting fierce debates on whether Paul's remarks merited the end of his career. But the wheels of controversy kept spinning. With Paul out of the network, attention turned to the broader implications. Across news outlets, experts argued about whether we've entered an era where viral outrage decides who keeps their platform. Some insisted that journalists must maintain professional standards, free from belittling entire segments of the population. Others argued that everyone is human, that a single moment shouldn't define a career or end it. Karoline, meanwhile, found herself on a new path. She received more invitations to speak, more interviews, and more offers to join different shows. The rumor mill churned, suggesting she might even consider a future run for office, leveraging her newfound media attention. Through it all, she carefully avoided gloating about Paul's downfall, focusing instead on what she called the bigger conversation about fairness in mainstream media. But Paul was determined not to vanish. Less than 2 weeks after his firing, he broke his silence with a raw video statement posted to YouTube. He looked tired, eyes shadowed from what must have been a stressful week. Yet his tone was forceful as he accused the network of valuing profits over integrity. He claimed to be a casualty of a system that punishes anyone who deviates from the approved narrative. Predictably, this sparked another wave of debate. Was he a victim or an instigator? As the dust settled, a new question emerged. Had the media environment changed for good? In the days and weeks following Paul's final broadcast, think pieces exploded across the internet. Was this a massive win for accountability? Or did it reinforce the power of online outrage to shape someone's fate? Commentators noted a shift. Hosts and reporters seemed more cautious on live TV, mindful that any careless phrase could go viral in seconds. Producers likewise began drafting stricter guidelines for on-air conduct. Nobody wanted the next fiasco. Some praised Karoline Leavitt for standing firm without stooping to personal attacks, calling her a model of composure. Others worried that her measured approach might signal a new wave of political commentators skilled at orchestrating viral takedowns. Meanwhile, Paul's name remained at the center of endless debates about free speech, bias, and the boundaries of public discourse. Rumors flew that he'd been in talks to launch his own independent show, free from network oversight. Sure enough, within a month, he unveiled his YouTube channel. His first segment racked up millions of views, fueled by curiosity and loyalty from those who believed he'd been unfairly silenced. Whether his new platform would thrive or fizzle remained to be seen, But there was no question that the media landscape was forever changed by his downfall. What happens the next time a TV host or public figure crosses a line, deliberately or by accident? Will the reaction be the same, or have we learned something from the spectacle of Paul Danning's downfall? No one can say for sure, but one thing is certain: the rules of engagement for live TV, and for public discourse in general, have changed. Now, we want to hear your thoughts. Was this the right call by the network, or an overreach fueled by social media frenzy? Share your perspective below. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this inside look, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that challenge the status quo.